it around the other way so she can see the front of it here.
Oh, yeah, that is great. I love it.
And there's a card. For Miss Edwina Robinson, our gratitude, we value you. Thank you for having us today.
Well, thank you for coming. Things not too well, but thank you for coming anyway.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much.
And don't lose your money.
Okay, Ms. Robinson, my name is Shaleisa Brewer, and I'll be conducting your interview for today. I'll be conducting your interview for today.
Okay, all right. If I have forgotten everything. When you get 93, you know, that you can't think of things, you know, what really happened way back. But I do my best.
You do well.
Shaleisa Brewer, November 20th, 2010, 10 o'clock a.m. Ms. Robinson, please say your name.
Where you want to put it?
Just say your name. Just say your name.
Just hold it.
Say your name.
It's already on?
Yes.
I am Edwina Robinson.
Okay.
Thank you.
Tell her what you're doing, Shaleisa. Tell her you're checking.
Oh, I am checking to make sure it's. I'm checking to see if the tape recorder is fine. Can hear you clearly. We can embrace
Well, I
your
don't hear
stories.
too well.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I'm checking the tape recorder
Mm-hmm.
to make sure we can hear your stories.
Yes.
She's going to play it back for you to be sure that we picked up your voice.
Okay. All right.
Oh, yeah, you. Can you turn the volume up a little?
I did.
Shaleisa? Yeah, okay, fine.
Okay, let us begin. Ms. Robinson, may you please state your full name on your birth certificate?
Edwina Davis Robinson.
Okay, are you a native of Dougherty County?
Yes, a native Dougherty County. I was born about a couple of blocks up on Washington Street.
So was it in a house or
Yeah,
a
but-
hospital?
No, at that time it was in the house with a midwife.
What is your mother's full name?
Emma Davis Harrah.
And your father's full name?
Mose Davis.
How many siblings do you have?
Living?
In all?
Well, it was 5 of us, and I'm the only one living.
Are you the oldest or the youngest?
I was the middle one. Yeah, it was 2
So-
old and 2 under.
To have 2 younger siblings, I'm sure you had to take care of them. So can you please tell me what it was like to take care of your siblings?
Well, during the time when I had my 2 children, I was divorced. My husband went in service, and when he came out, I don't know what happened, but anyway, we divorced while they were small. And I was working at the hospital, and it was very difficult because I had to change shifts. And especially when I had to change from 7 to 3 because I had to leave home at 6:30. And I had to get the babysitter to come, it was the nursery, to come and pick up the smallest one. Then the babysitter would come and pick up the, because we didn't have nursery school at that time. And it was pretty rough.
So can you tell me about your other working experiences? Your other working experiences?
Yes, during the time when we were small, as I said, was 5 of us. My father was a fireman for the Central Georgia Railroad.
Mhm.
And from that job he went blind when we was still very small. And at that time we didn't have welfare, not for the black at that time, because I knew that some of the white was getting it, but they didn't give us anything. Salvation Army would give us food, but they didn't give us any money or anything. So my mother had to do washing and ironing, you know, for the white people. And we would help her with the clothes and things, which didn't get very much from it. So that's how we survived. And when I was 6 years old, we didn't have buses to take you to school like they do now.
Mhm.
And I lived on this side of town. And the first grade class I had to attend was on the south side of town, which is about 2 or 3 miles from here. And I had to walk with my older sisters and brothers. There was 2 of them, and they would walk, and I was short, and I had to walk fast to keep up with them. And by the time they wait, you better come on, we're gonna be late. And as soon as I run to catch up with them, then they start walking again. I'm out of breath for catching up with them. And so one morning, my mother came in the room to wake me up, and they called me Doll. Said, Doll, it's time for you to get up, to get dressed for school. I said, but I can't move. She said, what do you mean you can't move? I said, I can move my hand. I said, but I can't move my legs. I can't move my body. And from then on, I was paralyzed from my waist down. And I stayed paralyzed for about two years. And then I went back to school because, as I said, things was pretty rough at that time. And it seemed like the teacher should have been more considerate. I know I started teaching school, and now if children didn't have clothes to wear, I opened up me account at Sears, and I would go and buy clothes and buy shoes for them. I still do things like that until I got to the place I couldn't do those things. And I didn't want to go to school, and I didn't have shoes. I wanted to go to school, but I didn't have shoes to wear. And so my mother said, well, maybe next week I have enough left over so I can get you a pair of shoes. And I said, okay, but next week by paying the bills and buying the groceries and things, she didn't have enough money. So then at that time, children don't wear out shoes like they did then, because when they wore out shoes, the bottom of the shoes would wear out, you know.
Mhm.
And my brother would put cardboard in my shoe, and so I could go to school. And by the time I got to school, the cardboard had worn out and was sticking out, you know, from the shoe, although I hadn't noticed it. And my teacher asked me, she said, well, Davis, why you don't know your lesson? Because I always knew my lesson. She said, you always know it. I said, well, there's no one near me that I could ask where was the lesson. And I said, and I didn't know where the lesson, because I stayed out about a week. And she said, why were you out? I said, because I didn't have any shoes, and my mother was saying that she was gonna get some shoes, and so that's the reason why I'm not. And she looked at my feet. Well, you don't have any now. I said, well, because she wasn't able to buy me any shoes, so I didn't want to stay out another week, and so that's the reason why I'm here. But it was pretty rough. And then later on, during the time, as I said, my father had to retire. They fired him because they couldn't see how to work, and he was blind. And then I had to stop going to school. Well, I went until I was in the 5th grade. I went through the 5th grade. And then the 6th grade, I had to stop find work. So I worked to the cotton mill, and I was 13 years old at the time, because I was missed school because I was paralyzed in my early years. So I was 13, and someone had told my mother that they needed someone to sweep cotton at the cotton mill. We had a cotton mill here. And they said that they need someone to sweep, and she can sweep. But my mother said that she can't get a Social Security card because she isn't 16 years old, although I came up large and fat, as they called it, you know. And they said, well, Mr. Wellaby doesn't care. He'll get a Social Security card for her because he just wants to, he was the one that owned the cotton mill. And he said he just wants somebody to sweep cotton. So he did. He went and got me, I don't know what he told my age, but anyway, he got my Social Security card so I could work. And so I swept cotton off the floor. And as I said, they just said, tell me 16, I was 13 at the time. And so that's the reason why I had to come out of school and start working to help my mother, because my father was blind and he couldn't work. And so that was one of the things I did. So when my auntie from Cincinnati, Ohio came down, and my mother was telling her that I was working at the cotton mill, and she told me, she said that she would have tuberculosis working at the cotton mill, breathing in the dust, you know, from the cotton. And she said, well, I can get her a job working with a Jewish family, and she can live with them. You know, at that time, the maids lived on the 3rd floor, and then they had the 2nd floor, and the bottom floor was their dining room and their living room and everything like that. And so she did. I went to Cincinnati, and I worked with a Jewish family to send money back to help support my family. And so that's what I did until my sister was old enough. Not she was old, wasn't old enough, but her husband, well, she was old enough too, but her husband went in service. And she was partly blind with 2 children. And my mother told me that, and she went in service from Philadelphia. And my mother told me that I need to go to Philadelphia to be with her, to help her with the children, because she couldn't see well enough to be by herself in a new place. So then that is the time that I went to Philadelphia. And that was during World War II. And then at that time, they needed nurses to go in service. And they were giving free nurse training if you would sign up. And I always wanted to help because I stayed sick when I was little, and I wanted to help other people that were sick or needed help. And so I signed up to go in service because they would give you free training. And so they sent me to a nurses school. And so when I finished, so many people, nurses went in until they had enough nurses, so I didn't get to go in. But then I started working at the state hospital in Pennsylvania. So I worked there for, I don't know how many, about 7 years. And I came back here. And then I started working at Phoebe. And that's when I had my children then. I didn't have children at that time. And as I said, my husband was in service, so when he came out, what happened is we just divorced anyway. And when I worked 7 to 3, it was hard for me to get the children to get to the nursery school. I had to wait for them to get there, and the lady that's supposed to come and get the larger one to keep her. And then I had to go to work, and I didn't have a car. Naturally, didn't have money. I had to have a cab. I had to have a cab to take the children to school and everything. So my paycheck went in paying bills, so I still didn't have anything. But for some reason, I just made it, and then the hours and things were just so bad with the children, and working 3 to 11, 11 to 7, and really what that turned me off, my daughter, I used to take her when I used to work uh, 11 to 7, at 11 o'clock at night to 7 in the morning, and I would have her to stay with a lady next door to me. We stayed in the project, and so then they didn't have a room for her to stay by herself, a bed by herself, and she didn't want to sleep with anyone. And so she told me, I'm not afraid to stay by myself. I said, well, don't answer the phone, and don't get up unless you have to go to the bathroom. Don't do anything. And so, okay, so that morning I came in and unlocked the door, and I smelled the smoke, and when I went into her bedroom where she was reading or looking at the book, and she had taken the light off the bed, because I guess she got to the place she couldn't see, and had it on the bed, and it turned over, and that light had burned through the sheet, the blanket, into the mattress, and if it had been a little wind, she would have been burned up. And I said, Lord, I'm going to have to stop, I'm going to have to do something. And so then that is the reason why I didn't finish high school. As I said, that I stopped in the 7th grade, but I said I'm gonna have to try to go to college. And I went over and asked them if I could take the college entrance test. And so the person that I talked with, he was one of the professors. In fact, he was a math professor. And he said, no, you have to go and get your GED. So you have to, I said, I don't have the time. I have 2 children to look after. And I said, I'm working 2 shifts, because if anyone is out, I need the money, so I work 16 hours. And one time I was working 24 hours. Had worked 16 hours, and someone came in, needed a private duty nurse. And I accepted, and so she was on the same floor that I had worked. She said, well, that was a 3 to 11. I was 7 o'clock, 7 to 3. I was getting off, and I was going to work for her 3 to 11. So when I came in, she said, didn't I see you last night? Because she was on the same floor. She said, didn't I see you last night? I said, yes. And I said, this morning, you was here this morning? I said, yes. And she said, do you know if you have worked 24 hours without any sleep? And it didn't dawn on me, I wasn't sleeping or anything. And she said, just change my flowers and everything, and I will pay you, and you go home and go to bed, and I see you tonight when I was going. So that is one of the really short experience I had, that I didn't realize what I really was going through. So that is some of the things. But finally I made it. I did go over to Albany State. I went to Dean Simmons. And I knew Dean Simmons because during the time when he was coming up, his grandfather reared him. And he came from Neesburg in the country just like my mother, so they knew each other. So when we were small, my mother used to take us to the cotton field, to pick cotton to buy clothes for the school. And Dean Simmons didn't have to go, but his father would take him anyway because he was from the country, so he would take his grandson. I don't know anything about his mother, but his grandfather reared him. If we have a building named Simmons Hall over on Albany State now from him. And so he was dean of student when he grew up. And so I went over there to see if I could take the college entrance test. He said, no, you have to go and get your GED. I said, I'm working and I have 2 children. I said, I don't have the time. So I said, well, I'm going to Dean Simmons because he knows me and I know him. And so I went to Dean Simmons. He said, go to whatever his name, I've forgotten his name, and tell him that let you take the test. So I went back and told him. I said, well, Dean Simmons told me to come in. Well, they run this joint. I just work in it. And so when he let me took the test, then he told me he was going to make a math major out of me because I always made 100 on the math test. I said, well, I'm a medication nurse at the hospital, so I had to know math. So that's how I got in the college and went to college. And then when I was working